Minute. Okay. It's 2:30, and I'd like to call to order the January 21st, 2026 regular meeting of the Local Agency Formation Commission at exactly 2:30. We're meeting in the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors chambers and on Zoom for the public. At this point, the clerk, Diane Estepona, will explain how both written and spoken public comments can be made by attendees of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public, the instructions on how to participate on today's meeting may be found on the published agenda. On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if you're calling by phone to indicate your desire to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. So then we'll proceed to item 1, which is roll call, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Rinaldi?
Present.
Commissioner Martin?
Present.
Commissioner Ruda?
Present.
Vice Chair Draper?
Here.
Chair Chen Kurali?
Present.
Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum. And we're also joined by LAFCo Executive Officer Rob Bartoli, Management Analyst Sarah Flam, Legal Counsel Timothy Fox, and in the audience, alternates Greg Wright and Catherine Slater-Carter. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to item 2, which is public comment for items not on the agenda and on the consent agenda. Please note that LAFCo meetings are a limited public forum, and all public comment must relate to something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the LAFCo board. If comments do not relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of the LAFCO board, we will stop the comment and move on to the next speaker. The county attorney, Tim Fox, will assist in identifying comments that are not related to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Madam Clerk, would you please proceed?
Thank you, Chair. I will first call upon any Zoom members who would like to speak or any in chambers. Currently, we did not receive any public comments not on the agenda.
So, both in Zoom and in the chambers, right?
That's
So then I can close public comment right now and move on to item 3, which is the presentation by the City of East Palo Alto on the status of the East Palo Alto Sanitary District. And basically, this is informational. But I know that that there are a few new board members on the LAFCO Commission, and so Melvin Gaines, who's the East Palo Alto City Manager, is going to present. So Melvin, you might have to answer a few more questions just in case, but thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, right? It's 2:30. Can't keep up with the time. My name is Melvin Gaines, as Chair Chen Kurali said, and I am the City Manager of East Palo Alto and also now the General Manager of the East Palo Alto Sanitary District. Today, I'll focus my presentation on the progress that has been made since the City of East Palo Alto became the parent organization, or East Palo Alto Sanitary District became a subsidiary of the City of East Palo Alto. And you'll see in my presentation that this move has proven to be about stability and governance, service delivery, financial controls, regulatory compliance, and long-term infrastructure planning. Next slide, please. So because some of you are new to the board, I'll rewind a little bit and talk about the city's interest in a different governance structure for the East Palo Alto Sanitary District. I believe in 2019-ish, the City of East Palo Alto entitled a number of development projects that the city envisioned as things that they wanted to, land use that they wanted to promote, uses that would benefit the community, whether that be a school or a center for nonprofits or a commercial development, as well as a number of accessory dwelling units applications that the city had approved that were not able to come to fruition because in order to get building permits, they required will-serve letters from the East Palo Alto Sanitary. The city engaged in a number of intergovernmental meetings, city council members, city staff, with the East Palo Alto Sanitary District Board and their staff to try to find a way to get the economic development projects that the city had entitled constructed or served by the sanitary district. And they ultimately came to an impasse. At some point, I believe the city submitted a application to you all for a municipal services review where you looked at various different governance structures, one being the sanitary district becoming a subsidiary of the city, another being that West Bay Sanitary District take over East Powell, EPASD's service area. And there might have been another one that I'm forgetting. I wasn't there. I came in 2023. But ultimately, LAFCo unanimously approved the city's application to make the sanitary district a city subsidiary on November 15th, 2024. And that reorganization became effective on October 1, 2024. And again, the purpose of that, it's been about stabilizing governance, uniting governance, and empowering the city of East Palo Alto to actually have more control over its land use authority. But it's also become clear that this is about regulatory compliance, strengthening the financial controls of East Palo Alto Sanitary District, and protecting ratepayers. Next slide, please. So, as you all know, you authorized the East Palo Alto City Council is now the governing board of the sanitary district. But you also know that you require the city, because the sanitary district not only includes East Palo Alto residents, it also includes a portion of the city of Menlo Park. You all recommended and the city agreed to as a condition to establish a 5-member advisory committee, of which 4 members are appointed by the East Palo Alto City Council, and the other member is appointed by City of Menlo Park. This body advises the Sanitary District Board or the East Palo Alto City Council on operations, finance, capital improvements, as well as rates. Next slide, please. So one of the first priorities that the city had was aligning EPASD governance and operations with city standards. Immediately, because the city council and the sanitary district board were one of the same, the board terminated the board compensation ordinance, which compensated board members at that time, I think $320 per meeting. Well, now we structured it where sanitary district board meetings occur on the same evenings as city council meetings. They just transition from city council to sanitary district board. So the city council decided, hey, we don't need additional compensation for this. We're spending an additional hour. So there's no longer board compensation. They also, we have also adjusted the financial controls of East Palo Alto Sanitary District. One of the things that we found when we took over was that the board, the district, lacked financial controls. There weren't people overseeing how checks were processed, and we actually found that there was a $500,000 payment that was fraudulently cashed, and the district lost those funds. I'll tell you a little bit more about that story, but the key takeaway here is that now that the financial controls follow the city of East Palo Alto's financial controls, that no longer can happen. We're no longer issuing paper checks that a non-authorized person can have access to. We've also done various different controls for how the operations of the sanitary district occurs. The former EPASD did not have a sewer system management plan, which basically says how the district will respond to sewer system overflows, how the district will implement different ordinances like fats, oil, and greases. Well, the city quickly worked with Fisher Compliance to audit the sewer system management plan, the lack thereof, and to create one. As far as capital planning goes, the district lacked a capital improvement program. The city quickly did a study of all of the development projects that were online and the system deficiencies and created a capital improvement program. And like I said earlier, we adopted a fats, oils, and grease ordinance because the district was not meeting with restaurants and requiring them to have grease traps in their restaurants. So that's just basically means that contaminants from oils and things like that that occur at a restaurant, whether it be McDonald's or taqueria, were going directly into the sewer system, causing blockages and additional maintenance problems. We now have a fog ordinance, as they call it, and our contractor checks that normally. Next slide, please. So when we took over the sanitary district, they had one employee, and that was the general manager, who was actually also serving as the district engineer. That one person hired 5 temporary employees who were assigned with the day-to-day operations, cleaning the sewer system, maintaining vehicles, and doing other various tasks. But they were hired through a temp agency and didn't necessarily have the proper tools or training to do their jobs sufficiently. The district also hired a accountant through a contracting firm and a IT technician through a contracting firm, and all of its administrative staff were actually from a temp agency, and they were kind of cycling through people on there's a high level of turnover and very little consistency. And there was very limited staff oversight. Our current model is I have the pleasure of learning to be a district manager of a special district. I'm the city manager and the general manager. The city attorney now serves as district counsel. Our finance director is the district treasurer. Public works director serves as the district engineer. And we've also hired on some net new people to help operate the district, having a utility manager who's there on a day-to-day basis and an administrative assistant. So we only have 2 full-time dedicated EPASD employees. However, the city provides a lot of support, whether it be HR, executive staffing, or finance through internal services. We also contract with West Bay Sanitary District to provide the day-to-day operations and maintenance of the sewer system. And we have 2 engineering firms under contract for capital planning as well as design and engineering of different projects. Next slide, please. So I spoke a little bit about the modifications of moving the district's financial system to the city system, and now it mirrors the city of East Palo Alto system. Instead of having a contract accountant, we now have the full depth of the city of East Palo Alto's finance division, including leadership under the district treasurer / finance director. We have internal controls that are much more effective than the district had previously. And we've also audited both district operations for fiscal year 23-24, which was prior to the city taking over, as well as the last fiscal year 24-25. And fiscal year 23-24, we did have that discrepancy or that fraud where we found $500,000 that was fraudulently cashed by somebody else. The city of East Palo Alto had to launch an investigation into that, and we ultimately found a suspect for who had fraudulently cashed that check, and it's currently being handled by the district attorney's office. We also had to go to the district's insurance agency and place a claim. So we were made whole by filing a claim after the fact. They said that we had missed the statute of limitations, but after a number of letters from our city attorney, the insurance agency decided to pay the district back that $500,000 that was missing. And as I said, we're still trying to hold the person who was responsible accountable. The 24-25 audit we recently had approved by the board in January, and it was a clean audit with no findings. Next slide, please. So in 2024, we did an inspection and found that there are a number of gaps in how the district was reporting sewer service overflows. And they also had gaps in their recording of the system through CCTV. So since reorganizing, we are now providing monthly reports to the state stating whether or not we have no spills or had a spill, which is just a standard regulatory requirement to do monthly reporting. We've been making those reports regularly and are in compliance. We have experienced 3 sanitary sewer overflows since we taken over in October of 2024, but in each case, we responded correctly, mitigated the spill, and reported it correctly to the state. And I'm also happy to say that since we've been better maintaining the pipes, we haven't had any SSOs, I believe, in the last 10 months. Next slide, please. So understanding the system condition is essential for long-term service delivery. And since October, our contractor has inspected more than 129,000 feet of sewer pipes. They've also maintained and cleaned over 250,000 feet of sewer pipes, particularly focusing on high-risk spots to prevent the system from having overflows. We've also completed numerous targeted repairs and, again, adopted the sewer system master plan, which is essentially our blueprint for the future and maintenance, the existing maintenance as well as the future needs of the system. Next slide, please. We've also done a number of standardized administrative processes, whether that be how the district issues will serve letters, which, believe it or not, was inconsistent before, how we issue permits, our fee schedules, conducting flow analysis of what's inside of the system, as well as archiving historical records. None of these things were previously done, but we're doing them regularly now. Seems minor, but we've also added technology improvements, whether that include using the GIS of the system or having the appropriate computers to be able to report things. The district lacks those. I believe that all these things may seem minor at times, but kind of the sum of all parts, it leads to more effective operations and a better product for the ratepayers. Next slide, please. So in sum, I just want to say that I believe the reorganization has achieved core objectives. Governance is now orderly and accountable. Service delivery is stabilized. Financial controls are restored with a clean audit. Regulatory compliance has been established, and capital planning is underway. We're viewing capital planning as a living document. We have our draft plan, but as new developments come on board or kind of move up the line, we have to prioritize different improvements. So it's a living document, but it exists, it's defensible, and it's something that I can explain. And with that, I'd just like to thank this body for its oversight and helping us navigate the reorganization process, and tell you that I appreciate you and I welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you. But before I open it up to the commission, I just wanted to recognize that Vice Mayor Ruben Abrica from East Palo Alto is here. Do you want to add anything to this, Vice Mayor Abrica? Oh, okay. Okay.
He wants to answer the questions. You know?
Okay. If Ruben, you're on the hot seat now. But I will open it up to commissioner comments or questions if there are any. Ann? Oh, Katie and Ann. Ann first.
I don't have a question, but comments is I really appreciate this review. One of your former council members had said at the time that East Palo Alto was incorporated, you weren't ready to do certain things, but now you were. And I think the actions that you've taken show that you are ready to do that and have done it. I was very concerned throughout all the hearings that we had that the former district just wasn't up to managing its system. And I was very concerned that there would be a terrible sewage problem because they weren't up to it. So this gives me much greater confidence that the health and safety of existing people is better served. There was a lot of discussion about new development, and that's important, but I was concerned with existing residents. And so I thank you for all of the forensic type of activities that you thought you never would have to do, but did to make sure that the existing residents are living and being able to exist, and businesses in a safe and sanitary environment. And thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And I'll just add that the existing system is what we're prioritizing. If we don't have a lick of new development, there were significant system improvements that were necessary to ensure that existing businesses and residents were adequately served, to ensure that pipes weren't broken, to ensure that they were cleaned on a regular basis, which they had not been. So that's something that we didn't know going into this, but we're very happy to take on and improve. So thank you.
Commissioner Martin?
You may know that this board was keyed into this problem because some developers complained. Do we have yet any agreement with, and is there any progress in the certification? I'm lost for a word, so that that process can continue.
So the timing of the city of East Palo Alto taking over the sanitary district and kind of the broad economy has slowed the interest in some of the large development projects for moving forward currently. However, we remain in communication with some of those development projects, and when they are ready to develop, they will be able to have a clear understanding of what the will serve letter process and requirements will be. Because we have our sewer system master plan that explains the projects that need to occur. So while we have not kind of progressed any of those developers that we've been speaking with in the past, we're ready to when they are.
I'm sorry to hear that, just on a personal basis.
Yeah.
You referred to a GIS, and I don't know what that is.
Geographic information. It's like mapping.
A mapping system?
Mapping, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I echo her comments. We were all kind of worried that the city had bitten off more than they could chew, but it looks like they
had a healthy
you
appetite.
guys really came to the party.
Yeah. It has been a learning experience. However, I think that we have good leadership on a council level, and we went into this knowing that we discover new things and have been very fortunate to work with partners like West Bay Sanitary District, who are very experienced in sewer operations, as well as to work with other consultants who have a wealth of knowledge. So I've been very fortunate.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rinaldi?
Thanks, Chair Crowley. So I first and foremost want to congratulate East Palo Alto on being able to take the administrative functions and streamline them so you had less dependency on consultants and outside resources, which are a cost. So I think you did a very great job there. Love the fact that you have better financial oversight. The one thing that always sticks out in my mind, though, especially when it comes to CIPs, is the ratepayers footing the bill. So my question's around rate sustainability, what you folks are doing to ensure that the rates aren't going to have a massive spike. I know you already mentioned with the CIP that you're focused on the existing infrastructure, not adding I think you said a lick of new infrastructure to it. So I'm curious of rate sustainability, how you're going to ensure that there's not a massive spike to the ratepayers.
So to paint the picture about current EPASD rates versus what other people, I live in East Palo Alto, however, I live in the West Bay Sanitary District territory. My annual rate is, I believe, $1,400 a year. EPASD's current rates are $660 a year. EPASD, prior to the city taking over, did a rate study and said that their rates should be $900 a year, but they never increased the rates from that. They went from $600 to $660 in 2024. So the prior EPASD administration conducted a study that shows that there needs to be a rate increase to ensure the existing system is adequate. Now that we've completed our sewer system master plan, see which sewer system improvements are necessary for existing users, as well as which system improvements would be necessary for new use. New use would be charged to new development through connection fees. Improvements to the existing system serving existing ratepayers would be charged through rate increases. We're ultimately going to have to increase rates from $660. However, we're conducting a new rate study under our leadership, looking at all of our numbers. But when rates do increase, it will go through a process. We have our advisory committee who will be able to scrutinize, as they have been doing for the last year, these rate increases and make sure that we are doing what we can to be efficient, doing what we can to make sure that we're not being wasteful, and limiting the rate increases, or making gradual rate increases, is the direction that we've been given so far.
So the long short of it is any new developer impact fee would pay for that portion of the new infrastructure. Whereas existing infrastructure, there will probably be rate hikes. It'll go through the advisory board so they can make sure that it's within reason.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Reddick, no.
I just want to say congratulations. It sounds like a real success story.
Thank you.
I have a question for Rob. Rob, because of the city's involvement now, is this still an independent special district?
A subsidiary district would be considered a dependent district.
Okay.
If there are changes to the boundaries of a dependent district, or if the dependent district changes from a governance standpoint, again, going either back to an independent body or is assumed by another agency, that would be a LAFCo process to go through that. But the day-to-day operations are managed by the dependent district through city staff and district staff. So that day-to-day doesn't come back to LAFCo.
Okay.
Well, then, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is regarding cleaning the sewer area. As you know, there was, and I know it was in the Bellhaven area around the holidays where there was that flooding. And it turns out that it was because the sewers weren't cleaned out. I don't know if you heard about that. That's what the fire district just learned
If
yesterday.
I understand what happened in Menlo Park, that wasn't the sewer system, the wastewater system. That was the storm drain system, and an issue with
Okay.
the pump.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that that y'all are prepared for these seasonal type of floods. I mean, because the area that this all happened in was pretty close to where just borders East Palo Alto, right?
Yes, and with kind of flood events, there are risk to the sanitary sewer system if there's leakage, right? Like, so if flood events cause the groundwater to rise, they could get into the pipes, or water could come out of the pipes if they're not correctly, they're inadequate, and then you can get sanitary gunk getting into the
Consequently.
groundwater. However, that's why we have our sewer master plan and why we've TV'd our entire system to see where there are areas where there could be intrusion or diffusion of sewer stuff, and we're prioritizing fixing those areas.
Okay, great. And then the other question regarding rate increases. I know that you said that there's a schedule, and I just want to echo Commissioner Rinaldi's concern that with whatever increase y'all do, that it's pretty gradual, because it's a pretty big difference between what you're paying as a resident within the West Bay Sanitary District service area versus what the ratepayers are in the former East Palo Alto Sanitary District service area. I mean, I knew it was big, but y'all are going to probably have to increase, but I just want to be mindful of the fact that it might be a shock to some of your residents, the majority of whom are in this former East Palo Alto Sanitary District.
Agreed, and I believe that the governing board, the city council, is always concerned about impact to residents and
Yeah.
residents' pockets book. So, I mean, we do need to increase rates, but we're doing what we can to make that increase gradual and to make it as small as possible.
Well, and I also want to thank you and the city council for just your wonderful management and leadership over this very fraught situation at the time. And I'm just glad that things are moving ahead smoothly. And I echo Commissioner Draper's comments and compliments too.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Then I'll open up to questions and comments from the public. Diane?
I believe this is information only, but Mr. Brica, did you want to go first? Okay. Looking on Zoom, there is none. So Mr. Brica, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Ruben Abrica. I currently serve on the City Council as Vice Mayor, and the way it's set up, I'm also the Chair of the Board. So I felt it was important for me to come and support our City Manager and also give you, I think he's given you management, that's their job. So I'm a political person, so I'm going to give you a brief political history of what's happening. First time I appeared before LAFCo was in 1981. I was part of the movement to incorporate and become a city. We finally became a city in 1983 by 15 votes, 5, 10, 15. From the very beginning, we felt there were 4 things that we felt were important to our community. They continue to be important. One is the idea of self-determination. I attach to that good government. It's not enough to govern yourself. You have to do a good job for the people. Second, we wanted to have our own police department. Nothing against the sheriffs, but they were not doing that great of a job. And if you want to solve crime and violence, you need to have control over your own police and have them do a job for the people, not for their guns. Third, we wanted economic development because we were a poor community. We're still relatively poor compared to others, compared to Palo Alto, but poor people can also live in a good life if you improve the economy. And we also were very interested in affordable housing because we're strategically located in a place where a lot of gentrification forces have always been at work, always. It's not just recently, it's always. So, I stand before you, and so I actually served on the city council the first few years of the city, 6. There were years of hard struggle. I do remember LAFCO in a good way, although it became controversial at times. I think your job then and now, and I've been in meetings over these 40-something years, is really you try to help political people to understand how you can do a better job governing whatever territory you govern. And so I appreciate that. If it had been up to us, the sanitary district should have been part of the city from the very beginning. But politically speaking, the sanitary district operated like a rogue medieval kingdom. And you've heard some of the things that we discovered even as we took it over. So we've always been prepared. Even the last 22 years, I've been on the council now back 22 years. We tried 3, 4, 5 times to work with them. And because we've demonstrated that the city, as we dreamed, could do a better job. We have eliminated violence for all practical purposes, like we had a high rate of homicides. We did it ourselves with the help of the county and other entities. It was the community itself who did it. So the idea that we couldn't take over the sanitary district and do a good job was really an assumption that, some of the people on the sanitary district board itself created these stories that were confusing people. Like, oh, we're just a poor little district and these big billionaires want to take over and the city council wants to go along with them and, you know, they want to charge us for everything. All we ever said was a fair share. Rates, payers, you need to pay your fair share. It's a service. Who do you expect is going to pay it? You pay it. Developers, you pay your fair share. But let's be smart, like you, LAFCo. Let's do a study. Let's put it before the public. Let's have a discussion and then arrive at something that's fair. Instead, they were not doing that at all. Not at all. So I want to tell you that I see in the last year, the transition, I think, has been fairly smooth for the first time in the history in East Palo Alto, and I can vouch for that. The public really had an opportunity to see a document, to read a document, to ask questions. Before, it was all half secrets, all these, you know, oh, we don't have a report, so you're just winging it. You don't run a government like that. You don't run a government like that. So I never had, those of us who've been involved in this, we never doubted ourselves for 1 minute. We could do it. And by, you know, a little coincidence in history, I want to say that in 1983, when we became a city and I served on the first city council, Melvin Gaines was born. He was born with our city. And so I feel doubly proud that we actually have someone from our city running the day-to-day government, doing the best that he can with his staff, and he does a great job. And so we, as elected officials, I think need to keep working together. So I promise you that as chair this year, I will do my best to try to find out as much as I can, details, keep up with things. But I am here also to tell you that we definitely appreciate the decision that you made, the staff, and you know, we went through a lot of hoops, but it's turning out to be a good thing. And thank you very much. I'm sure our first mayor, Barbara Mutan, would be happy. And actually, Jackie was on the Board of Supervisors, so she knows the story too. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Abrica. So Rob, just a quick question. I think this was a really great update. Do we have another one scheduled 2 years from now or whenever? I mean,
We
I don't know I don't know how y'all normally do this.
Yeah, we don't have one scheduled for the East Palo Alto Sanitary District. Certainly, we'll stay in communications with the city about any issues that may arise or any questions that may come up, and we can certainly do some checkups. And if there is a desire for an update in the future, either staff can give that, or we can ask the city if they're able to come back and provide that at a future meeting.
Okay.
But certainly, we'll stay in contact with the district and the city staff on that issue.
Thank you. Okay, so we are done with this item, which was informational. Thank you, Ruben and Vice Mayor Abrica and City Manager Gaines. I'm so used to saying their first names because they're great friends. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. There are 3 items. One is the action minutes to approve them from November 19th, 2025. The second one is the proposed annexation of 252 Club Drive in unincorporated San Mateo County to the city of San Carlos. And the third is the proposed outside service agreement for water by the city of Redwood City to 3699 Oak Knoll Drive in unincorporated Redwood City. So I don't know if anyone would like to remove any items. And if not,
I don't want to remove it, but I do have a question.
okay, I was going to say, then we can, if there's a discussion on this, then we can talk about that now.
This is a question to staff. Item 4B. This is the 4th one-year extension. And sometimes things change as the city laws, city rules. Is there any, I know for building permits, I think you can only extend so often. So the question is there any limit to the number of extensions that we have?
For a time extension for an annexation, there is not a limitation to the extensions. We are still working with the applicant so that they can complete their conditions of approval. That is the sticking point on that particular annexation application. There needs to be a building permit submitted for some modifications to a structure that was made on their property. And once we can complete that, I believe we can finally complete the annexation application, but there is no limitation to how many extensions we can grant.
Okay. On Club Drive, yeah,
Yes.
the 4th.
Okay, so there's no public comment period at this time, and if there are no other questions from the commission, then I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda
So moved.
Second,
by Commissioner Rinaldi, and I don't, Commissioner Ruddock seconded it. Thank you. Do you want to do a roll
Yes.
call? Thank you.
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Romaldi, seconded by Commissioner Ruda. Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Ruda? Commissioner Rinaldi?
Aye.
Vice Chair Draper?
Yes.
Chair Chankarali?
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion passes.
Thank you. So going to the regular agenda, item 5, which is the final hearing or consider of final municipal service reviews for the town of Woodside and the town of Portola Valley. So Executive Officer Bartoli, would you like to start the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, the item before you is the final municipal service review for both the town of Woodside and the town of Portola Valley. The drafts were presented to the commission at the November meeting, along with a presentation in December to the town council for the town of Woodside, and a virtual workshop was held for the town of Portola Valley's municipal service review in January. There were some edits from the draft version to the final version for both MSRs. For the town of Woodside, there were edits and additional detail regarding some of the Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District sewer services, operational details, and information that were provided by the County of Public Works. And then for the final municipal service review for the town of Portola Valley, LAFCo received 3 written comments, and we have responses to those as part of your packet, along with the original comment letters. And that includes some revised data regarding the number of parcels that are currently connected to the West Bay Sanitary District, additional maps showing those existing sewer service areas, additional details regarding the 1% property tax allocations for parcels within the town. And so there's a new table for Portola Valley that shows where there's allocations. A note to that is that if you look at the table shows that this town receives about 4%. I think it's 4.12%. Because of state law under tax equity allocation cities, they receive 7%. However, in the actual tax data, it still says 4. The county does a process to transfer the correct amount to the city every year, or to the town every year, as part of state law. So the numbers reflect what is the 4%, the original percent prior to Prop 13. There is no a transfer that occurs to make it a full 7%. And there's a notation about that. There's also additional detail and clarification regarding some of the governance options that were mentioned, particularly annexation, either of the Ladera area, and whether or not it could be the whole community, or it would just be limited to potential commercial areas of the Ladera community. So there's some clarification about that. And there's also some language that highlights potential issues that the town should evaluate before undertaking any potential annexation, either again of Ladera, of portions of Ladera, or Los Trincos County Woods. We just have a brief summary of the recommendations regarding Woodside. Most of those, again, reflect issues around the Fair Oaks Sewer Maintenance District and the operations regarding sewer. And so it's here on this slide, along with some information about the sheriff's office. And for the municipal service review and sphere of influence update, LAFCo is recommending again that there are 3 parcels along West Maple that are included within the new sphere of influence for the town of Woodside. And that was presented as part of the draft version that the commission saw in November. And then again, for a summary briefly of the Portola Valley recommendations, a number of those have to do with supporting the town in its efforts regarding exploring new revenue, continuing to work on the audits, continuing to work on capital improvement programs, both of which areas the town is working on towards now. And again, similar to the town of Woodside, additional language about working with the sheriff's office and both towns together, thinking about how there could be opportunities for either shared services or joint contracts to potentially reduce costs. And with that, the recommendation before the commission today is to open public hearing, accept any public comments, accept the final municipal service reviews and sphere of influence updates for the town of Woodside and the town of Portola Valley, and then adopt the determinations and recommendations that are in the report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rob. And then I'll open up to questions from the commission or comments. Questions from the commission?
Just
Chair, Commissioner Martin and then Commissioner Rinaldi.
In the packet that you sent later of the comments, number 2, which has to do with the town should continue to provide updates to the town council, etc. But there is no parameters around that. That could just sit on the table forever. Is there any way to include a specific time frame? Often they should be in touch.
For that, I will leave that to the town to kind of figure out the cadence to that particular update.
Right,
yeah.
of course.
I think the town has done over the last year or so particularly, and they have a lot of staff changes. I think they have continued to still provide as many updates as they can within their capacity regarding the town's finances.
Mhm.
Certainly the public and the registered voters within the town are very interested and keen on this particular topic. So I do suspect that the town council will continue to ask staff for regular intervals of updates regarding the town's finances. So basically we support staff in doing that, but we don't have a cadence necessarily or when they should bring that particular topic.
Some way that we can put a tickler on this issue.
I think for that particular issue, staff could continue to reach out to the town staff to see where they are at with either updates about their finances or updates about potential revenue measures.
Okay.
And if there need be, bring a report back to the commission to see kind of what the status will be regarding that, particularly if there is an election, what the outcome of that election would be. I think that'd be useful information for the commission.
We don't want to lose track of this, particularly with Portola Valley. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Rinaldi?
Thanks, Chair Crowley. I think I got a little ahead of my skis over there. I didn't realize Commissioner Martin had a question, and I was going to suggest maybe we move to public comment to see if any questions come afterwards.
Okay, if there are no other questions from the commission, then I would like to open it up for this item up for public comment. And I just want to remind everyone that we did get these public comments through email, and thank you, Rob and Sarah, for responding, and at least for our edification. Do we have
Thank you, Chair. Currently, there are no hands raised on Zoom or in the room. Thank you.
Okay, then I will close public comment on this. And is there a motion to, well, I mean, it's the consideration. I guess we need to just make a motion to, I guess, accept or finalize this MSR. And then this will be put to bed for both Portola Valley and Woodside, at least, unless something else really comes up. But right now, it's just this finalized MSR.
I make a motion to accept the final MSR for the town of Woodside and the town of Portola Valley and adopt the determinations and recommendations. I do want to say in response to the Commissioner Martin talking about timing and keeping a tickler, our next item is appointments to our budget committee and legislative committee, and the budget committee looks at, among other things, our work program. And so that could be considered in there because there's a few other things that I think we need to have some updates on. And so that could be one of them. And so I think we could handle it that way and not put it in
Our normal packet.
recommendation.
That's a good solution to the problem.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not put it into our
Not
normal.
put it into the MSR.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree
Right.
with that.
Yes, Commissioner Ruddock?
So I have one question or comment. Looking at the sources of funding for Woodside and Portola Valley, the recommendation is to continue to look for new sources of funding or ways to augment existing sources of funding. And I'm just wondering what those might be. I mean, it seems to me they're kind of restricted in terms of property tax largely. They don't have a lot of sales tax. Is there any way that they could be assisted in exploring these sorts of things to improve their overall fiscal sustainability?
So I think Rob might be able to answer that
I will
question.
take a portion of that answer or question. I believe town staff also is here. If you have any further questions about what they have explored. So since the kind of financial situation has come to light at the town of Portola Valley, they have explored a number of different options for potential revenue measures. They have looked at where their revenue sources come from. Again, the majority of those come from property taxes. There's very little commercial areas in the town, so sales tax is not really a major source of income for the town, nor is TOT for hotels or anything like that. So the town came up basically with a matrix, and they have looked at different revenue sources and revised UUT, utility users tax, additional property tax or parcel taxes. And I think the town has most recently looked at and are moving forward with some more evaluation regarding a property tax transfer tax in conjunction with then becoming a charter city to make those changes.
But that's
So
for this town of Portola Valley
for the town of Portola
primarily,
Valley.
not
Right.
Woodside.
Yes,
Because their tax structures are fairly different in terms of how they get the
From
amount of tax.
the town of Woodside and town of Portola Valley are similar in that they both receive the majority of the revenue from property tax.
Right.
The amounts are
Different.
different
Yeah.
in Woodside receiving more
Okay.
largely because of greater property value and more parcels within the town comparatively to the town of Portola Valley. But that's been the most recent analysis that they have concluded. So in the efforts of that, at least, LAFCo continues to support them to look at those revenue measures. The staff and the town council has done a lot of research into that particular issue. So they're well aware of that particular problem and their potential options.
I do like the recommendation to pursue or at least evaluate more intensively shared services between the two communities. That makes a lot of sense to me, given their situations, and certainly public safety. But I would definitely, support that approach. Trying to integrate a little bit seems to make sense in terms of efficiencies.
Would either of the town staff, would y'all like to give us an update on what y'all are doing? I know I'm a little out of order. Is that okay?
That's okay. Also, Mr. Ledbetter is on Zoom as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
There we go. Excuse me. Good evening, Honorable Chair and Commission. Corey Stalker Pedalino, Assistant Town Manager. So thank you, Commissioner Ruddock, for your suggestions. Those are very helpful. We are looking at shared services with the town of Woodside. We've recently met with Sheriff Binder and had a great conversation about how we could potentially look at our contracts when it comes up for renewal. We did sign a 1-year contract. And in addition to the request about the financial updates, we do have our town manager who provides finance updates about once a month to the town council. And our finance director, who's also joined us on Zoom, provides updates periodically as well.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I'm Mary Hefty. I'm the Vice Mayor of Portola Valley.
Welcome.
And I don't want to spill the beans too much, but we're here in part, I think, because we have a financial crisis and we need help. And we turn to LAFCo for help. And we, in particular, turn to LAFCo for help with understanding what our relationship was with our sphere of influence and with our neighbors. And we are looking for concrete long-term solutions to those ways where we can actually have some success. I've asked the question of a lot of people, what is the ideal city size or town size? And I think Portola Valley falls a little short. We like it. Don't get me wrong. We like it. But financially, it's been a problem. The other problem I see from looking at your numbers and looking at our situation is that more than 50% of the land in Portola Valley, in the town of Portola Valley, is in open space. And from looking at your taxes, we're giving money to open space, not taking it. And this seems to me somewhat of an existential problem for us and for them, because so we're needing your wisdom and your expertise and your guidance, really. And we're getting, I think everybody in Portola Valley, or at least the people I know who've looked at these documents, have been very happy that finally we've got it all on a couple of pieces of paper that we can actually look at and say, well, this is what the problem is. But we need to know about what we can do in terms of querying other communities. You know, do we send out a questionnaire to Ladera? Do we send out a questionnaire to Los Trancos? Do we send out a questionnaire to Woodside? Do we? I mean, I'm not speaking as staff. I'm not speaking as an expert. I am a layperson trying to look at a complex situation, and an open space fanatic. So I think we need to make this into a win-win situation. We can't be taxed out of existence.
What about a financial charrette? You know, where you bring in finance directors from, you know, other communities or even other states to look at your problem and make recommendations, kind of like a design charrette, you know, where you look at urban renewal or.
We don't have any money to do anything so far.
Yeah.
So that would be my quick answer to that. But and that's where the expertise. That's why we turn to the people we're sharing our taxes with.
But in a charrette, it's donated time, typically. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. But we have to have staff to do that.
Yes. So Vice Mayor Hefty, thank you for
Yes.
I apologize for not recognizing you earlier. So thank you.
Oh,
Welcome.
no. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to be here, and an honor. It's really, really exciting that you turned to us and paid some attention. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes. Commissioner Rinaldi.
I guess the next question is, what is our next step? How do we approach the next step? And when do we take it?
So we are going to be approving this final version of the MSR, right, Rob, today? That's the hope and that's the action. But before we go down that path, Commissioner Rinaldi had a question or comment.
Thanks, Chair Corrali. I had a quick question for the town of Portola Valley. I understand the housing element has been quite cumbersome for the town of Portola Valley. I also understand that there's been a lot of interest in upgrading the infrastructure to support new housing for that area.
Mm-hmm.
Topography is not an easy area to do that in. So my question is around the housing element, and if the city itself or town has had any engagement with any of the elected officials to potentially talk to the state about the housing element and kind of say the one size fits all approach doesn't really work for a town like Portola Valley. And secondly, ask about the financials that you folks have invested in those studies to make the improvements to infrastructure to be in compliance with your housing element, which, if I'm not mistaken, you don't have a certified housing element right now. Is that correct?
I believe we are currently certified.
Okay, you are currently
Yes,
certified.
we are
Okay,
currently
good.
certified. Much to our excitement. So we are currently certified in our housing element. In terms of the conversations with elected officials related to the housing element, we have had our prior mayor and our current mayor. We are planning to introduce him and have him connect with our local officials, as well as our prior mayor and vice mayor have met with local officials as well to discuss the housing element. It's been an ongoing conversation with some of our local representatives, just given our size. In addition to Woodside and Atherton and some of the other communities, we have had some conversations about what we could do to meet the numbers.
That's great news to hear. And I know in small towns, financial budgets, every dollar counts. You
Mhm.
really got to stretch them and make them go far. So regarding the housing element and the finances that were applied to it
Mhm.
with studies, whatever outside consulting firms you had to hire, do you have any idea what those financials look like that came out of the budget?
I believe it's over $1 million for an organization like us, being rather small, but I do want to ask my finance director who's on Zoom if he has a better idea than the rough number I've provided. And if he's not available, I am aware that the number is over 1 million, and that was last year that we put towards the housing element over the past few years to maintain compliance, as well as to bring in those consultants and to have those feasibility studies.
And that's a pretty substantial amount out of your general fund.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I
Is he-
am
Oh, perfect. Sorry, Mr. McFarland.
yes.
Please. I just wanted to make sure that you heard that there was a question out here.
Yeah, I mean it has been in excess of over $1 million over multiple years, not only just in consultant time, but also legal. Our town attorney and other attorneys looking into these elements. But it has been that and the sheriff's contract have been the reason for the decline in our general fund reserve over the last 2 fiscal years or 3 fiscal years, excuse me.
Yeah, so I'd like to commend you on the idea to do combined services with the sheriffs, with the town of Woodside. I'm kind of a little disheartened though to hear about the housing element and the amount of financial resources that have gone from a small town like Portola out of your general fund to try to be in compliance.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if there's anything we can do around there for advocacy or anything like that, but that'd be a suggestion that I'd give.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. There's one more raised hand on Zoom with Mr. Ledbetter.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? This is Jason. I'm the town manager for the town of Woodside.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to participate. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciated this process. Rob and Sarah were fantastic. I've been here since May 15th, so having the opportunity to do the municipal services review helped me learn a lot about the town of Woodside within the first 2 months of being here. But just to touch base on the shared services, I'm currently working with the town manager of Portola Valley. We met yesterday with Supervisor Mueller to talk about shared services. I'm not sure that there'll be something that comes of that. We are exploring them. At the moment, the sheriff's contract doesn't really showcase a benefit with the shared services. You can almost view them, quite frankly, currently as shared services right now because they're the same beat. But we are working to try to find a way to bring down the cost for both Woodside and Portola Valley. And I just wanted to touch on the fiscal solvency of Woodside currently. We're in a really good position currently fiscally. We have some better planning that we can do on our capital improvement project list that will really showcase kind of long-term financial health. I think currently we showcase that if you look 5 years into the future, we give the worst case scenario as though we were funding $3 million of capital improvement projects every single year, and then escalating the sheriff's contract, which just isn't, it's not reality based. So I think we have a lot more wiggle room. And then on top of that, the irony here for us is that the housing element is kind of forcing some subdivision and more development of just market rate housing in Woodside, which ironically increases our budget over time. So we feel like we're in a pretty decent position, but we also want to be good neighbors to Portola Valley. And so we will continue to work with Portola Valley and with LAFCo to find solutions to that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or public comments?
No other comments.
Okay, so we
I
did.
will second the motion. I think a motion's already
The
been.
motion
Yeah.
is made but not seconded.
Sorry,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, can I just touch on what you said, Debbie, about the charrette? I don't think that's a bad idea. So Rob, I guess, are we going to keep in regular communication with the town of Portola Valley at least to, there's coming from that part of the county, I know for a fact that their financial situation was very, very dire. And I just want to commend the town for facing that reality and for trying to solve the problem and think creatively. And I think suggestions like what Commissioner Ruddock suggested might be something to consider. But how can we get these updates from? I mean, because we're going to be approving this MSR in its final phase, right? Final reading. You've already done the public outreach. I just want to make sure that I hear that they need our help in it, and I'm hoping that the MSR will be a good guidance point for them. But just these updates, I think, would be good, not just for us, but for your town residents. To be honest with you, it's been in the news for so many years.
Yes, we will certainly stay in contact with both town staff at Woodside and Portola Valley regarding the Portola Valley update, or even a Woodside update if one is needed or requested. We're certainly happy to give an update, probably at an appropriate time. I think that especially in the town of Portola Valley's municipal service review regarding governance options or changes in the boundaries, so an annexation or anything like that, that might be something that the city will need to consider. Certainly LAFCo will be involved in any kind of ground level discussion about that with staff so they can understand kind of our perspective. Any information about the finances or any information about any revenue measures that the town has, I think that we can also bring that back. Similar to how we've done updates for other districts or agencies when we've talked about the finances at an appropriate time, probably after that action has happened or after that election has happened, we can give an update. But we will certainly have those open channels of communication between LAFCo staff and town staff at both towns.
Okay, thanks. So there's a motion by Commissioner and Vice Chair Draper and a second by Commissioner Ruddock. So why don't we just do a roll call? I think
Commissioner Rinaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Rudolph,
Yes.
Vice Chair Draper,
Yes.
Chair Chung Crowley.
aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for being here too. Okay, so on to item 6, which is the appointment of the Budget and Legislative Policy Committees for our LAFCO for 2026. So I know, Rob, do you want to, the report's pretty simple. Rob, do you want to kick this off or do you want?
Sure, I will. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, item 6 requires that the commission appoint members to serve on the Budget Committee and the Legislative and Policy Committee. Both committees typically have 3 members representing a combination of the different types of LAFCO membership, so county, city, special district, and public. The Budget Committee will provide direction to staff in preparation of the Commission's fiscal year 2025-26 budget, the work program, and will also review the fiscal year 2024 independent audit. The current committee is comprised of Commissioners Chen Corrali, Draper, and Wright. The Legislative and Policy Committee meets as needed to provide direction to staff on pending legislation affecting LAFCOs, review existing commission policies, and advise staff on new policies as needed. For instance, this past year, the Legislative and Policy Committee provided advice and direction to staff on devising a new MSR policy related to public access and remote meeting participation at government meetings. So the current commissioners serving on the Legislative and Policy Committee are Commissioners Ruddock, Rinaldi, and Martin. We can go ahead with the recommend actions for the commission at this time. By motion, it's recommended to appoint commission members to serve on the Budget Committee and on the Legislative Policy Committee for 2026.
Okay, if y'all would indulge me, I just want to throw out a suggestion. Because I know that we're so involved with LAFCO, this commission, and I'm just looking at the Budget Committee, and we have one of the alternates, Vice Mayor Greg Wright from Pacifica, who's on there, and I kind of want to, I know that I kind of want to open it up to the alternates as well, the city, special district, and even Colleen, the public member, because they want to be involved and I want them to be involved, right? And they're not up here in the dais every other month. And so, I don't know, I kind of want to give priority to what they're thinking if they, want to be on these committees. I've heard from some of them that they do want to continue or be on the committee. And so I just want to get the commission's point of view on at least letting them kind of tell us what they want to do first as well.
I'm perfectly happy to have alternates be on the committees. I do have a question. If we have alternates,
We
I'm
have
looking at
alternates.
staff, are we then, we have more than 3 members because they're not voting members unless they're sitting. In other words, we could, if so on the budget committee, just as an example, I mean, I want to serve again, but on that committee, but could we have 4 if one of them like
Is an alternate.
is an alternate?
Yeah, how does that structure work? That's an excellent
So
question.
typically we keep them at 3.
Right.
When we can have alternates, because the alternates would be essentially regular committee members then in that standpoint, and we don't typically have alternates to replace them
Okay.
on those 2 committees. So historically we have just had 3, and most of these times we are flexible enough to work with people's schedule to make sure that we have all 3 members that are able to attend one of the committee meetings. So we have not had alternates to the regular appointed members, whether they be alternates in the LAFCo sense or regular commission members for the 2 committees. If I'm using the term alternate too many times, but typically we just have the 3, and they could be regular members from LAFCo or alternates, and we don't have any additional members appointed other than the 3.
So if I could, you have 3 because then it doesn't have a Brown Act problem. And that if they're serving as on one of the committees, then they are a voting member
of the committee.
Committee.
Yes.
Which is fine. But is there then a problem with the Brown Act as a whole because they're not regular voting members of the committee as a whole?
So in other words, would the budget committee, for example, be a Brown Act committee?
Well, I mean, if there were 4 members, 2 of which are alternate LAFCO members, is that a problem from a Brown Act perspective?
Rather than call it a problem, let me describe it this way.
Okay.
Every committee whose members are selected by the LAFCO, by official formal action of the LAFCO, is subject to the Brown Act.
Yeah.
Unless it is something called an ad hoc advisory subcommittee consisting solely of less than a majority of the members. So that exception is relied upon for subcommittees that consist solely of less than a majority, that generally is studying on a short-term basis for a limited time potential recommendations to bring back to the full board. And it's been the interpretation of the county attorney's office for a few years now that if there are members on the ad hoc advisory subcommittee other than members of the larger body, let's say you wanted to have a blue ribbon commission that included members of the public, that you would lose the ability to rely upon the exception and the Brown Act would apply. Okay. I think the fact that there are alternates on LAFCO, which has always been really problematic because the Brown Act does not acknowledge that there are such things as alternate members of anything. It would be my interpretation that they would be members for purposes of that rule and that you could continue to rely upon the exception. I would urge that the subcommittee not be any larger than, in your case, 3, including the alternate members. So as long as you had 3 members, whether they were regular members or alternates, I would advise that you can rely upon the exception to the Brown Act for ad hoc advisory subcommittees, and they could meet without posting an agenda and having a public meeting space.
Okay. So
Was that overly complicated?
No, basically we have to keep it.
B3, stay at 3, or if you wanted to have more, then you'd have to have all the noticing requirements.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So,
all right, got it.
Okay. So, so we currently have the 3 who I will take myself off of the budget committee. And I don't know if Commissioner Draper wants to stay on the, okay. So would you like to stay on the budget committee, Mr. Wright or Vice Mayor? Okay. Is there anyone else on the commission or even Catherine, who wants to be on the budget committee?
Oh, we don't have everybody here.
I know, but we can make the decision today and we should probably make the decision today, because really the only two commissioners missing are the county commissioners.
And I suppose we could appoint them.
We could, if,
How about the other alternate, Colleen Public.
oh, Colleen, yeah, yeah.
I think we need her permission. Don't we? It's
If-
voluntary, right?
Yes, the committee appointments typically are voluntary, so
Right.
we would have that
Mhm.
the committee members would want to be on those committees, and we will work with them. The next, the Ledge and Policy Committee really does meet on an as needed basis. The Budget Committee typically will meet next month in anticipation of starting to put together the draft work plan and draft budget for the LAFCo meeting in March. We'll also review the audit for fiscal year 24 in that meeting. So that has a more time sensitive need to fill those appointments before the March meeting.
Okay, so I think we have to work with whomever's here right now.
Chair, we also have alternate Colleen Yu on Zoom.
Oh,
with her
perfect.
hands
Oh, I
raised.
didn't see her. Sorry, Colleen, and welcome. Colleen, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have a preference, or would you like to be on one of the committees?
Thank you. No, thank you. I would not like to be on a committee.
Okay, so if we can, okay, so let's take the budget committee first. So I know that Commissioner Draper wants to stay on and alternate Wright wants to stay on. I'll take myself off so that if there's anyone else who wants to be on the budget committee, please. Well, so the committees don't have categories. No, no, the commission, the committees don't have categories. So does anyone else want to be on so do you want to be on the budget committee? Okay, so do any of the other commissioners want to be on the budget committee? Okay, so and you want to stay on, right? And okay, so then can we just put on the slate for the budget committee, Commissioner and Vice Chair Draper, alternate Wright, and alternate Slater Carter as that slate? And then we'll move on to the Legislative Policy Committee. Who wants to be on that? The current commissioners are Ruddock and Commissioner Ruddock, Commissioner Rinaldi, and Commissioner Martin.
I'd like to stay on.
Okay.
Same.
Okay. So that's the other slate. So we have two slates that we can vote on. The first one is the Budget Committee, which would include the slate would be Commissioner and Vice Chair Draper, alternate Wright, and alternate Slater Carter. And then the Legislative Policy Committee slate would be Commissioners Ruddock, Commissioner Rinaldi, and Commissioner Martin. So
if I may, just hopefully this is helpful. One of the hallmarks of an ad hoc advisory subcommittee is that it is limited in both time and scope of jurisdiction.
Yes.
So it's important for the appointment to be to the subcommittee to make recommendations for a particular year's budget, and for the legislative committee to be making recommendations about the current legislative session, so that they are not standing committees on those topics.
So I was going to say, so the Budget Committee is going to focus on the 25-26 fiscal year, and the Legislative Policy Committee will focus on the current calendar year 2026. So is there a motion to approve the two slates with that?
If I may, it actually would be for fiscal year 26-27.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, for 26-27. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so there is a motion by Commissioner Ruddock for this item, and then a second by Commissioner Rinaldi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruddock,
Yes.
Commissioner Rinaldi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Draper,
Yes.
Chair Chang Karali.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so item number 7, which is Cal LAFCO. Rob, would you like to kick off that presentation because there are quite a few things here and I can help you untangle some of them because I've been getting updates as a Cal LAFCo board member.
Yes.
So are you going to start with this slide?
I will start with this slide actually. So thank you, Chair. So yes, there are two items related to Cal LAFCo, item 7A, which is informational with requested feedback, and item B, which is then direction on a voting member. I'll start with item A though. So over the last year, the Cal LAFCo Board of Directors has been working on a review of the existing Cal LAFCo bylaws and generally the structure of Cal LAFCo and the board itself. There was a working group that was formed to examine the structure and potential regional changes and models, and seeing if there were opportunities for any improvements to those structures. So Cal LAFCo last month put together a several changes and a request for feedback on those proposed changes in the bylaws in a regional map. So currently, there are 4 Cal LAFCo regions. That's the map on the right-hand screen in black and white. Right now, San Mateo LAFCo is in what is called the coastal region. That consists of the 9 Bay Area counties and then the counties stretching south from Santa Cruz down to Ventura. There is a proposal to change the regional maps into several regions, going from 4 to 9. And then the coastal region to be proposed to be broken out into the South Bay, which would include San Mateo, San Francisco, Alameda, and Santa Clara, North Bay, and Central Coast. And that map is shown on the left hand of your screen. The South Bay region is there shown in green. And also shown on that map is then the total population of those counties in that region. There's language that has a cap, which kind of talks about the dues for Cal LAFCo, and then how many proposed board members out of each region would be eligible to be elected to the Cal LAFCo board. So in the case of South Bay, from the coastal region where there are 4 elected members coming out of that region, in the South Bay, there would just be 2. That's consistent for most regions. There are 2 regions that actually would be reduced down to board members with just 1 based on their population. That's North Coast and what would be called as Cascadia Sierra with just 1 board member. There would also be, as part of these bylaw changes, the reduction in size of the board itself. And that would be reducing down from 20 current members to 16. Like I said, as most of those would then have 2 members out of the region if this proposed map was to be adopted. There are several other changes that were proposed as part of this bylaws update. And that had to do with local executive officers being eligible to be elected to the Cal LAFCo board from their respective regions. What were called regional officers. There was a regional officer that typically was a staff person from each region, would no longer be voting members of the Cal LAFCo board. Right now, the structure of Cal LAFCo is similar to the local LAFCo in that there are member types. So there's typically of the 4 members out of one of the regions, 1 of those a member of the public, 1 member from the county board of supervisors, city council, and special districts from any of the LAFCos within the region. That restriction would be removed, so there would be no more seat type allocation for Cal LAFCo, and there would be a limitation for LAFCo that only could have 1 board member from a local LAFCO represent Cal LAFCo at any time. So in the proposed South Bay region that we would be potentially in, which would again include San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Alameda counties, you could not have 2 Cal LAFCo board members come both from San Mateo County or Santa Clara County, for example. There was a request from Cal LAFCo to provide draft comments from staff, and we did do that last month. Generally, I'm supportive, staff is supportive of removing the seat type, especially if there's a reduction in the number of voting members from each region. Staff generally supports the idea of having elected officials, executive officers be on board, on the LAFCo board from their respective regions, particularly if that region feels like that is the best representation for their area. It could very well be that, especially some of these smaller districts or more rural areas, that they might feel that those elected officials might ultimately feel that their local staff might be the best person to represent their interest in LAFCo.
Or in some cases where one executive officer works with multiple counties. So the county, that one staff member would actually represent multiple LAFCOs.
Yes, that is very true. And that's
In the
not
rural.
uncommon, again, in some of these more rural areas, particularly in the north and the central portions of the state. Staff was more mixed on the division of the coastal region, particularly with regards to voting. However, we were generally okay with it, but they really still wanted to be some kind of either ad hoc or some kind of entity that focused still on kind of what used to be the coastal region, so we could still have these connections with all the Bay Area LAFCOs and the Central Coast ones that we do have good relationships with, and similar concerns and issues that we share with those counties. And then in the staffer board, there is some language about staff's concern regarding the limitation of the one board member representative from LAFCO at any given time. And that has to do with some unique circumstances that are in some of these proposed regions that are either that have very few LAFCOs, such as Southern California, South Coast, which includes LA, Orange County, and San Diego, or what is known as, I think, Inland Desert, and again, South Bay, where we only have 4 LAFCOs in those regions.
So let me just also add that the LAFCO regions, as you probably can tell, is based off of population, right? And so the more populated counties will have fewer counties in technically one region. So it's kind of an unusual situation.
Yeah, so the proposed South Bay County area would be the second largest by population, even though we only have 4 counties.
Right.
So there is a concern, though, about the limitation for the one member per LAFCO in certain circumstances when you don't have a full roster of LAFCOs in these smaller regions, where in the case of South Coast, you only have 3, technically none of which are currently LAFCO board members or LAFCO members, because all 3 have left LAFCO. In the case of South Bay, all 4 local LAFCOs are members of LAFCO. However, typically, San Francisco does not participate in any elections or LAFCO board meetings. So really, we're a region that has 3 active LAFCOs. So there could be circumstances where you end up with 1 or 2 LAFCOs in a region, which then, if you're only allowed 1 representative per LAFCO, could then hinder LAFCO board representation. So LAFCO had some feedback and potential amendments language to address that particular issue. So based on the feedback that LAFCO received from 24 LAFCOs, they summarize that there's general support for the executive officers being eligible to be board members, along with support for eliminating the current board seat type structure. But there was mixed comments, mixed results about the new region structure. So the next item, which we'll talk about, is the special corporate business meeting in February. At that meeting, LAFCO staff has said that the only bylaws changes that will be before the commission or before all the voting delegates will relate to the ability of executive officers to be voting members and to the removal of the C-type requirements. The restructuring that's proposed on those maps that were on the previous slide will not be voted on at the February meeting. There will be a presentation by staff at that item, but there will be no action. And so I think they may take feedback and see whether or not there'll be a future action related to any changes to that region.
So right now, it's possible that the new map configuration could come back to the board in October. That's a very strong possibility. So
The LAFCo board.
yeah, not our board,
yeah.
the LAFCo board.
So if that was the case, that would typically then be at the annual conference.
Correct.
So we would hopefully have that, and
part of
maybe
the
that would be
visit.
something that we bring back to the commission for input at our September meeting.
Correct.
Ahead of that. So there's no required action on that. However, staff is asking for any feedback or comments about the draft plan on this particular item. And as Chair Cincarelli has mentioned a couple of times, she's been, as a LAFCo board member, she's been very involved in some of these conversations. So I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify, and I'm sure Chair Cincarelli also will be able to provide additional information on this.
Do you want a little bit of background perspective as to why we're here now?
Yes.
Okay, I kind of.
Yeah. Why did this happen?
So, so there have been some LAFCOs. So you have to remember, I just got on the board in 2024. And before that, there were some issues and challenges that LAFCO was facing in terms of the legislative committee being dissolved, or not dissolved per se, but like changed, right? So there was a lot of transitions going on from the executive director of LAFCO, the nonprofit, right, and the chair of LAFCO at the time, from Napa County, right? And so there were some changes that were made to the legislative committee that was very upsetting to some of the LAFCO members. So LAFCO members are the 58 counties in California with all their LAFCOs, but not every, or they can be potential members, but not all county LAFCOs are members of LAFCO. And so there was a group, and I think that working group is in the packet, from the 4 executive officers of the 4 regions that are currently here, to kind of think through how it is that we can bring back members and fulfill the mission of LAFCO, which is still not quite defined in my book, but, you know, basically legislative advocacy, staff development, you know, for LAFCO staff development of the 58 county LAFCOs, and in my opinion, also public education, right? So those conferences for the commissioners of the 58 LAFCOs can learn about LAFCOs. Like this last conference in San Diego, there were pretty many new LAFCO members who are elected officials on their local LAFCO boards, like ours right here. And they did a really fun LAFCO 101 kind of like, I don't know, breakout session that was all day. It was like a Trivial Pursuit kind of LAFCO 101 Trivial Pursuit. And it was packed. And I can't remember how many new commissioners there were, but there were, I would say, maybe a third of the room was filled with new commissioners. So that's what I mean by educating, you know, the LAFCO commissioners who are on their current LAFCO. So if you look at the 3 points that LAFCO is supposed to, this is just my opinion, Rob may have some others thoughts, that LAFCO is supposed to do for their members. You know, it wasn't working with this old structure for some people, right? And like for the current structure of the 4 regions, some of the executive officers thought, well, we can't really caucus that easily within our own local areas. So like if you look at, I'm looking at this Sonoma under the new one, I guess it's the North Bay with Sonoma, Napa, Solano, Contra Costa, and Marin, right? I know that some of the commissioners there, or not commissioners, executive officers thought, oh gosh, the coastal region with 15 counties is way too big for what their needs are. So, you know, like for us, which includes the coastal county, right? If you look at the old structure, you know, it made some sense, but up north, it may, they didn't think it was effective. And so that's why there's this proposal to change this up into the different areas on the map, the colored one on your right, on the left, if you look at your screen. So they're just trying to figure out a way to be more effective as an organization. Cal LAFCo is an organization. So that's why there are these proposals out there. And so and also to make sure that there are checks and balances so that I guess the legislative committee, for example, everyone would know exactly what was happening, and there isn't control by a person or a group of people, so that it's more of a populist model, for lack of a better word, if that makes any sense at all.
So they think introducing they think introducing more complexity will be more accountable.
So they want to reduce the number of board members and, from 20 to 16. And Rob and I have talked about, and they want to do away with the categories. So I personally like some of the categories because I think we all have different interests, and you can really hear the perspectives of the different interests among the Cal LAFCo board members, right? But I can understand why they want to do away with the categories. For example, they want to include the executive officers in with so currently there are 4 regional executive officers. What are they called, like deputy executive EOs or under, I can't remember the exact title, but
regional executive officers.
Yes, regional executive officers of the 4. So they're currently voting members on the Cal LAFCO board. So that was a change, which, I mean, right now, to me, I want a balance. And I think that having them as voting members is not the best idea. I mean, they're staff, and that doesn't mean that they don't contribute in a very meaningful and valuable way. But, I could see potential voting blocks that would not necessarily be in line with what the elected commissioners would want, because at the end of the day, the membership is going to be who stays in will be driven to a certain extent by staff, but also by the commission, who gets to direct staff and say, well, we want to stay in or we don't want to stay in. But obviously we're working, thankfully, Rob and our commission we have a great relationship. So it's very open, and we have a very wonderful two-way dialogue, but not all the LAFCOs are like that across the state. So anyway, but getting back to the purpose of Cal LAFCO, if you look at that, and to me, those are like the 3 things. What serves that purpose? Which structure serves that purpose? Or is there a hybrid or some other structure that we haven't thought of? And so right now, that's what we want to get your feedback on, because I guess the meeting is in February, our board meeting. Right? Oh my God, I'm getting all my dates.
The special board meeting for Cal LAFCO that will talk about the bylaw changes is February 23rd.
3rd, yeah.
So we will have that meeting will occur before the March meeting.
Correct.
That is, again, based on correspondence from Cal LAFCO. That will not then include any action about changes to the regions.
The maps, yeah.
There'll be a presentation about that, but the action will be limited to discussion on that item, and the reduction. The 2 actionable items, it sounds like, will be related to the size of the board. The seat type, and the EOs.
Meaning the executive officers being able to be a voting member, but they have to be duly elected within
the 4
regions,
Cal LAFCO regions, that they stand currently.
Correct.
That's correct.
Which is the map on your right.
Yes, in black and white there.
I'd be very interested in the chair's recommendation.
Well, so I've talked about this with the executive director of Cal LAFCO, and I already think that I'm not sure about the regions. I'm okay with having so let me just say this, Debbie. We want to bring back the Southern California LAFCOs, and right now it sounds like Los Angeles is entertaining that they'll come back, but I don't know about the others. And we would like to have Kern County come back, but there are other issues revolving around Kern County, which is the fee or the fee structure or the due structure. That's a whole different topic. I'm okay with what they want right now. And that can probably be changed. I don't know if I like this map change. I haven't made up my mind on that yet. So I'm okay with having this still be the current map of the 4 regions. Like I said, I would like to have the categories because I think it's important to understand why the perspectives come out of the different the different directors, the board members of LAFCo. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, maybe I could follow up with a process
Yeah,
question.
please, because we need to put our arms around. I've been trying to do this for 6 months now.
So it sounds like we need to give some direction for the February meeting. And that would be, it sounds like on 2 items.
That is correct. Yes.
So maybe if we have no time constraints on the mapping thing, maybe we just put our arms around the recommendation for the February meeting on those 2 items.
Yes, that's
And
what
then
I
the
think.
map issue will come back.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I agree with that. Commissioner Mark Draper, I mean.
I did have a comment on the maps if you're going to discuss it. And I think I like the idea of the smaller regions. I could never figure out. We had a hard time with areas of interest or common areas of interest with the Central Coast because it was just too big. And so I think that splitting it up is better because you have similar issues within those smaller things, and that's a good thing. I do think that Santa Cruz County and may want to be part of our group because so many people live there but work in Santa Clara County, and sometimes when you go down the coast, you don't really know whether you're in Santa Cruz County or San Mateo County. I mean, they sort of function the same, but when you get into Monterey, that's a little different. So if you're going to be talking about it, I would say that might be a consideration of moving them from this purplish into the green. So I like the idea of splitting it up. That's the map.
Increase our numbers.
Yeah. Well, we'd still only have 2, but it's common areas of interest is what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
And
so I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think I brought that up with Rob too, like with Santa Cruz, because it does abut our county, right? But I can see
well, they
how
do have
Monterey would want that, but I don't know. It's I agree with you, Ann. So
yeah, but there whenever you split up things in maps, there's always that one little chunk that's sort of, does it go this way or does it go that way?
So
And that may be it. But as it relates to the executive officers being members of the board, I don't think I'm happy with that. And the reason is that this is LAFCo is part of those people who are on the board, on the different boards, and executive officers are not on the boards. They're staff. Important, should have a role, but I don't know if they should be voting members. So that's just sort of my thought.
under the new proposal, they would not be voting members, but they could still be on the board. So I had the exact same concern you had, and I brought that up to the new executive director and talked to a few other EOs across the state, and their concern was, well, I don't think any executive officers will ever run because who's going to want to run against their bosses who, right? I mean, I get that too, but I had so the EOs under the new structure would not be voting members. They would just be on the normal, they would be like a normal board member if they're elected. So this is what I mean by I felt that it was a little bit out of balance with the working group, that it was very much staff driven, and that instead of the
Commission driven.
Yeah, meaning the elected representatives on the 58 LAFCos. And it's not. If you look at the list, and Rob had it in here. I don't know if you have the list in front of you, but there was a whole list, and most of them were executive officers. So I agree. I don't want it to be two staff. I want it to be balanced. So I totally agree with what you're saying. But in this situation, with the new proposed structure, the executive officers can be a board member if they choose to run for that position, because we're not going to have categories. Now, Rob knows that I feel like categories can be useful. But this is, so I don't know.
So can I make a
Yeah,
clarification? So currently there were bylaw changes that happened last year. What that change did was that each regional officer who is a staff person of a local LAFCo from that one of the 4 regions became a voting member on Cal LAFCo.
Right.
So basically the board expanded 4 new seats, 1 regional officer dedicated seat per region. The proposed bylaw changes would remove all the seat types for all the members, meaning that there are no more regional officers, so there's no longer always going to be a staff person on the Cal LAFCo board. The change would allow now local executive officers to be elected as voting members to Cal LAFCo, but there wouldn't be a requirement to fill the regional officer seat type anymore. So you could have voting members on Cal LAFCo be either one of the 4 member types that typically are on a local LAFCo, public, city, county, or special district, or an executive officer. But because of the removal of the seat type requirements, there will not always be an executive officer from each region that will be automatically appointed. So so that's just to clarify, because so you could have executive officers be voting members, but there won't be the regional officers anymore. That was a always standing seat type on Cal LAFCo.
Okay. So if you look at page 160 of your packet, you'll see the members of the Cal LAFCo Regional Board Restructure Working Group. So currently of those on here, there are 10 who are executive officers. So 4 of them on here are currently voting members, but they're also executive officers. So that was basically a Band-Aid, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to get rid of the executive officers as voting members because they can now be general board members. Does that make sense, Ian? Now, so my problem with this, and I have mentioned this to the executive director, is that the restructuring working group is pretty much made up of only executive officers instead of the decision makers who can say, we want to be members of Cal LAFCo or not. So, but this is the proposal that the board voted on. Just so y'all know, I expressed my concerns about this because the executive officers were concerned that the previous situation was imbalanced and it was geared more towards the elected commissioners instead of what the executive officers, and it's not all of them. There are a few that are more vocal than others who felt like they were not being heard. And so that's why we have this. And so in some ways, I think it's swung the other way a little too much. But I was outvoted. Just put it that way. So I'm trying to find the middle ground, which would still be a little bit of a Band-Aid. And then we can discuss the map situation later. So, I mean, these are just the proposals. I don't know, Rob, if you want to put the other screen up about, yes, the proposed changes. So if we want to take these one by one, we can and give feedback. So like executive officers becoming eligible to be elected to the board from their respective regions, but they would no longer be voting members. I think bullets 1 and 2 kind of go together, right? Because it's conditional that if number 1 happens, number 2, won't happen, right? So, if you want to give feedback to Rob on that, we can do that now. I'm just trying to put my arms around this because there's a lot because this is a major restructuring right now that they're proposing to do. So, and then the removal of the seat types, and then limit the member LAFCOs to one board member at any given time. So that came about because the coastal region under the old map, which our county is in and includes Napa, Sonoma, it goes up to that North County area, had to Cal LAFCO board members from that region. So that one, this is Napa County, had two. One was the city representative and one was the public representative. Napa left temporarily. They may be coming back, but that meant that the coastal region, which we're a part of, and I'm the special district rep, only had two people, me and oh my God, I forgot who the county rep was from.
It was
Monterey, Wendy
Monterey.
Root Eskew, right? Who's the chair of Cal LAFCO now. So we were there was like this void, but they also, I think some of the executive officers felt like that they controlled a lot of the decisions, right, that were being made. So that's why this last bullet is here. But given this potential new map, there may be a problem here too, because if Southern California, which includes Los Angeles County, Orange County, and San Diego County, are in this new structure, Orange and San Diego have left. So that means that this southern or south coast region, which should have two members, would technically only have one under this current last bullet, which limits LAFCOs to one board member representative at any given time. So one board member for, the most populated county probably in California. Is that sufficient, right? And so these are just these issues that Cal LAFCO is facing. Now there's been a proposal to have have two members. Let's say if we look at the or the South Coast region with LA, Orange, and San Diego, and let's say that Los Angeles ends up having two, and then if Orange or San Diego join back or rejoin, then the one person from LA, I'm just using them as an example just because I know there's this situation with the counties. If one of them comes back, then LA would relinquish one of their board seats and have the other one get onto the board, which would help deal with that last bullet, limiting one member from a region onto, on the Cal LAFCO board. So again, I know it's probably like not, it doesn't seem like that it's important, but I think that if we want to have legislative advocacy influence, we got to get past this, which I think is important for Cal. It's like CCAG and CSAC and all of those types of, it's that kind of organization, but I think in a more unique way because you've got special districts, county, and city under one umbrella. So do y'all want to break this down? I mean, I can propose that we can break down like these proposed changes and take the first two, which is the executive officers being eligible to be elected to the board, and they will no longer be voting members. How do y'all feel about that?
I'd be in favor in taking it bullet point by bullet point. So if we have to do the first two in one shot, then that's what I would be in favor of.
Any feedback on the first two then? I mean, are you okay by consensus taking the first two as one item?
Yeah, and I'm in favor of the proposed change.
Okay, Rob, are you taking this down? Okay.
So what you'd say is if the executive officer is elected, then they are a voting member, but they're not automatic.
Correct.
Members.
Because
Okay.
right now, the regional officers are automatically voting members on the board.
Okay. And not this last Cal LAFCO statewide meeting, but the one before that we attended. Something had occurred before that, which got all these people really upset.
Yeah.
And I know that we were sitting at a table and I thought, I have no idea what's going on, but there are a lot of really angry people going on. And it seemed like a clash of ego. And because I kept listening, tried to figure out what's the substance here. And I could never figure that out. So,
So I've been involved with that so that that doesn't happen. I'm
Yeah.
on the conference committee, right? Because that was happening at the
so
conference.
I'm in favor of this. Because it occurs to me that in some of these really rural counties, they may, in terms of allocation of time and everything else, they may need their executive officer to represent them. So I'm okay with the first two.
Debbie and Ann, what do y'all, Katie, what do you think?
I don't know.
Debbie?
Good things and bad things
I
about
know,
both.
I agree. I agree.
I'm okay to have them be eligible.
But they would be elected, like if I ran again for our region.
You'd be competing
Correct.
potentially.
Yeah.
Well, that seems a little problematic, actually. Yeah.
I'd like to chime in just for a second. I'd be in favor of making sure that whoever the representative is going to be for the board member be someone that's elected or appointed. I don't think it's necessarily the position of putting an executive officer on the board. That would just be my personal feeling.
So I brought up that same concern, and I was told that the executive officers feel like they might not have a voice because they don't want to run against their quote unquote bosses, right? So like if I ran, is Rob Bartoli going to run for this? Right. That's the rationale that I was given. Do you see what I'm saying?
Can't they have their own advisory board to the LAFCo
So
board?
that's what I wanted. So, and they were like that. And now, because of all of the brouhaha, the regional officers really made a push to become voting members. And I had a problem with that
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see that point.
in the current situation, in the current structure.
Yeah.
And I think that the interim executive director, no, who was it? Pamela, the interim executive director of LAFCo, had the same issue. So in her report to the LAFCo board, she stressed that this might bring people back, but she's can see all of the problems that
Yeah.
just all the issues that we're now dealing with, that we're talking
Mhm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then maybe we say, we oppose then that.
Well, that's why I wanted to
Yeah.
take the two together, but I hear what you're saying, Steve. Totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Steve, you're saying that they shouldn't be eligible to be on elected to the board.
Yeah, because the board's going to be a voting member and they're going to be making decisions. So, my personal opinion should be someone who's elected or appointed, someone representative of the people.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that, but I was just trying to think of maybe in some of the rural counties they just can't. But
Yeah.
if there's fewer number of representatives, then you'd be able to have those. Instead of trying to find 4 people, you'd only have 2 that would be representative. So I could very easily oppose that too.
Yeah. And maybe make a suggestion that, executive officers maybe can be proxies in the case of Northern California where, maybe somebody can't make it. You can ask your executive officer to be your proxy or something like that.
Quick question on that. Wouldn't the executive officer, I think Commissioner Reddick, you'd mentioned it, wouldn't the executive officer serve as kind of an advisory to whoever that elected board member is?
Yes. And yes.
Executive Officer Bartoli, maybe you could shine some light on that for us.
Yes, if I may, I think typically if you had a LAFCo board member from your local LAFCo, I feel like that executive officer probably would correspond with that LAFCo board member about LAFCo items. I can't speak for every example
We
like that,
do.
but certainly
Yeah.
me and Commissioner Jane Corrali do that, and we have a regular ongoing conversation about what those issues are. When staff kind of provided initial comments about having support for the executive officers being elected to LAFCo, in my mind, that had to do it was tied to the creation of the new map and smaller regions.
Right.
If you're having still 4 larger regions, then I think some of my initial thinking and seeing the need for potentially executive officers coming from a region may not be as applicable if you keep the 4 larger regions with a lot more counties. It was if you create a northern region that has 6 or 7 counties that may have one executive officer that covers 5 of those LAFCOs. I could foresee a situation where that region may want that executive officer to be their CalLAFCO member. But if we're staying in the 4 region, at least at this moment in time, that I think that changes my thinking and my calculus a little bit on that particular issue.
And I'll add that the original proposal had these changes. So it was only like maybe a week or so ago that I found out that this working group was having a heartache of over changing from the 4 regions to this. And so that really, I'm with Rob, it kind of changed my thinking because the package that we were presenting was not the same as what we were originally given. Right. So the 4 regions, that map is not going to come back to the board until probably, like I said, October.
So it sounds like,
Does that help?
it sounds like this new map is where everyone kind of wants to go to from LAFCO.
Well, no, right now they don't.
They don't.
So that's what I'm saying. So there's been a change in thinking from, it sounds like this working group of mostly executive officers, right? In fact, all of them are executive officers. And they're now having a heartache over going from this 4 region area, the map, to this multi-region map, but they still want those other proposed changes. And I agree with Rob that it kind of changes the calculus because when the board members were first given this proposal, this was like a package deal with the changed maps and those proposed changes. And now they only want to change a part of that proposed package.
It seems like there's so much in flux that it's hard to give you definitive direction.
So we know that the map isn't going to change right now.
But I'm saying, I
So
don't know.
does that help you make a decision on the other proposed changes that are going to be brought to the CalLAFCO board in February?
No.
Okay.
But
sorry,
but
no,
you've heard our discussion.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that we can come up with a final.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my thinking.
So maybe the 2, like if we take the 2, Rob, it sounds like we don't necessarily, well, some people agree with the two bullets going together, but
Let me ask you this real quick, just for clarification. So I get the first point is that executive officers can become eligible to be elected to the board. Let's talk about how that process works to be elected to the board. How does that work?
So it would be, so when I got elected to the board under the current map, which is the black and white map,
Yep.
I had to campaign as a special district representative because we still have the categories, right? The seat types under the 3rd bullet. And so the seat types are public, county, city, and special district. So I campaign for the coastal region in the 15 counties,
Yes.
right? As the special district representative,
Yeah.
right? So that would go away. So I could effectively be running under this new structure with the current map as one of 2 people under the current map with no seat type. So I could be running against an executive officer from Ventura County, for example, right? And or another executive or another commissioner from Contra Costa County. I'm just wanted you to see how big the region is. Or Sonoma County, right? Or an executive officer. So they would be at large. There would be no special district rep, city rep, county rep, or public rep.
And if I may, about the mechanics of it as well. So technically, actually, if you kept the old maps, there still would be 4 elected officials.
Not under this. Not under the proposed changes.
No, because but the board members' seats are tied to the revised map. So technically, if they're not going to revise the map, technically still, there would be, at least my understanding of this.
I don't think so, Rob.
So we would need clarification then about how many seats would be allocated to each region. Because you
mean not seat types, the number of seats.
The number of seats. So there'd be 4 seats in the coastal region. They would have no qualifiers about member type.
Right. So you could have 4 executive officers from the coastal region be on.
I will say though, the mechanics of that though is how the nominations occur. Is at least historically, I do not know if there will be changes going forward, but historically each LAFCO that the commissioners of the LAFCo have to nominate someone from their local LAFCo to be a potential candidate to CalLAFCO from their region.
Correct.
So if someone chose to do that, LAFCO could nominate any of the member types that are regular elected or appointed members or staff. So it's not as if a member or an executive officer can go on their own and basically say, I'm going to be a candidate. There still has to be a nomination process from that local LAFCO. So there is that kind of, there's the mechanics of that still that occur.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot it. Yeah, in general, that is the case.
I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable then with the first 2 bullet points
Under the old map.
under the old map.
Okay. Maybe we should go to the third bullet, and because I view these kind of all together, put they're relevant. So if we remove the seat type, how would you feel, Steve? For example, I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat, but that means that you may not have a city representative or a special district representative or a county representative or a public representative. You could have none of those. You could have 2 special districts or 2 cities or 2 executive officers, right? And so you wouldn't have necessarily, if you go down this path, the interest that you would have from a LAFCO perspective, which I think is great that we all have different perspectives, right?
Yep.
On the Cal LAFCO board. So I'm giving you the extreme scenarios. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals that could happen.
So if you remove the seat type, would that give like the counties more weight, to be
Could
elected
be.
or bigger cities in your region kind of a thing?
It potentially could, because
Yeah.
if you look at the different seat types, depends on who's
Yeah.
being elected to these roles. So
Yeah.
we'd have somewhat of an imbalance
Yeah, me
there.
too. And so just for disclosure, this is the one that concerns me the most. I've talked to Rob about this. Our LAFCOs in general, by state statute we have seat types, seat representation.
Structured.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so should Cal LAFCO have that kind of structure mirrored?
I think I would share your concern about that. I would probably come down on retaining seat types, I think.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Rob, did you get that? Rob and I have talked about this, and I think he has some concerns, the same concerns that we have too.
I agree. I would like to keep the seat types, and the reason is that, as speaking as the public member, you all are elected, and you know what it takes to run an election, and that takes a lot of effort, and as a public member, you just don't do that, and so you probably would be outcompeted by people who are used to doing that because you have experience in doing it. I know when I was asked one time whether I wanted to put my name out there because the public member was up, I thought, oh, running in an election, I don't know about that. So, but I do think it's important that there be
a public member voice,
a public member voice on the commission.
I agree. No, on the Cal LAFCO board.
On the Cal LAFCO board, just like there is here, because there are different perspectives. And so there are just you have a potential for having a whole category of people not being representative.
Yeah, you lose diversity of perspective.
Yes,
The
which I think
perspective of each group is important.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to have some influence over legislative advocacy.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
That is critical.
Rob, did you get that? Okay. So we want to keep the seat types.
Okay.
Okay. So then, so does that change your perspective for the top 2 bullets, or even taken together or separately?
Well, if the executive office, but they would have to declare, I'm going to be the city, I'm going to be the whatever type. because they'd be taking over one of those seat types.
Oh, you think?
Unless we add a seat type of an EO.
Well, I think you would then probably keep, if I may, I think you would keep the regional officers, because basically that would be the seat type for local LAFCO staff. If
Correct.
so, to some extent, bullet points 1, 2, and 3 are tied together.
Right.
Because if you are keeping seat types, then I think you would either if you were supportive of executive officers being on LAFCO, then the regional officer type would be kept. If you were not, and then you would remove the regional officers and you would not support the executive officers being eligible to be elected.
But we
Right.
don't have regional officer types. It's by region.
Yes, but
They're
I'm
executives.
essentially saying that they're a type
Oh,
of
yeah,
seat
okay.
member. So
Yeah.
you have the 4 categories of the
Yes.
local LAFCO ones, and then you add the regionals. Basically, you have 5.
Yes.
Hence and then you have 4 regions, and you right now have a 20-seat board. So basically, you'd be keeping the structure more or less
The same.
the same.
But so let me just say, so the regional officers currently are voting members of the board.
Mhm.
And that can be good or bad, right? Because we had a board meeting in, God, it was San Diego, this last meeting. And I found that, of the 20 board members, actually 24, the EOs almost voted as a block. And that is concerning to me because, and I get it. I get why they would do it, but it almost outweighs some of the other perspectives and voices. So,
What if you,
sorry, Debbie, yeah.
what if you said executive officers may be eligible to be elected to the board from their respective region if authorized by their board? Like if their board feels,
Instead of the seat type, like in lieu
well,
of the,
I still feel we want to keep the seat type. Maybe eliminate the regional directorships, but allow executive officers to be eligible to be elected if, supported, if authorized by their board. In other words, that might take care of the Northern California problem.
That's a good idea.
Where it makes sense maybe for the executive officer to be.
What are you concerned about, Katie?
All of it.
Okay. Okay. Tell me what you would.
Really, all of it.
Yeah.
So
I
would
agree
you?
about the C type 1000%? Maybe a basic question: why should, with all due respect, staff be on the board?
A voting board.
No, I agree
Yeah.
with that. That's I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And
I was only saying, if you just tie it to being authorized, there may be certain circumstances where that makes sense and you have that flexibility to do
So
that.
that the
and I
commission
think
votes for
regional
that.
officers should continue to be voting members of the board.
Oh, really?
I do.
Even though they become a voting block, which I saw in San Diego at the board meeting.
Didn't you say those were executive officers?
No, they were the regional officers. The 4 regional officers were,
Which are
Okay, I
executive
can
But-
understand.
officers.
and
I
they
misunderstood that.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear, Katie, but that was my concern is they were a voting block because they worked together so closely, right?
I think you want to avoid that for sure.
Right.
So then it sounds based off of what the discussion is so far, the first 3 bullet points we're opposed to.
Yes.
Yeah, we could just take that blanket position. What's wrong with
Just oppose the first 3. What about the 4th?
Like that's going to happen very often.
Well, it did. So it really came out of the coastal region because we had two members from one county, right? And when that county left, it literally decreased our board seats representation by 50% because there were 4.
Okay.
So maybe we favor that one.
Yeah.
We could, yeah.
Okay.
So then we're opposed to the first 3 and then in favor of the 4th. Is that what the consensus is here?
Say, yeah.
Rob, how do you feel?
So
about
if I
this?
may, just to add a clarifying question, because I heard concerns about the regional officers, which are local executive officers, being voting members. So currently, that is the structure of the board. The regional officers are voting members along with the 4 seat types from each region.
Yeah.
Is it the desire to not have those regional officers be voting members?
Yes.
I think that's
Okay.
fair.
So then basically, so wouldn't be, you would support technically bullet point number 2 and be opposed to bullet point 1 and 3. And with support, I think, from bullet
Correct.
point 4
Yes.
is
Yeah.
what I heard.
So let me just give another not viewpoint, but factoid, if you will. So before, the regional officers were they were advisory to the board, which is exactly what you mentioned first, Debbie. And I would like that, but then they felt like there was this imbalance, and that's why you have this working group made up of EOs with really no one from an elected commission on here, which is why I'm concerned about some of this. So I just wanted to give y'all that other
Yeah.
fact. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, the former structure was that the regional officers were advisory to the Cal LAFCo board. They weren't voting members.
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah. So last
is
year,
kind
the
of what you
bylaws
said.
changes that include the regional officers as voting members.
Yeah.
So the regional officers became voting members very recently, but before then they were not.
So I just revert to the previous practice that they're advisory.
That makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Yeah.
Here too.
So then we're in favor of we're in favor of 2 and 4, and 1 and 3 we're opposing.
Yes. Rob, do you want to add your perspective from the EO perspectives? I've given mine, and I mean, you and I have talked at length about this.
And I will try to be brief in the
Yeah.
mindfulness of time as well.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry. We have one more thing, which is the voting delegate.
Yes. So from the perspective of my perspective, at least, it does, like I said, it does change a little bit if the regional maps are not changing. I think because everything I think is largely tied to that.
Yeah.
Again, with the idea of support for executive officers being eligible. If you have smaller regions, there might be a need for that. If you have larger regions, there may not be. I will say that the seat type can still lead to some structural problems in that you then need to have every type, which maybe you don't have from some of the regions, an interest from a member of the public or a member of the county. I have heard from other executive officers that particularly the county seats sometimes is very hard to fill.
Like in Los Angeles County in particular.
Yeah, the southern region, very large counties, those county supervisors, much like other county supervisors, have a lot to do, a lot of region to cover. There may not be an interest out of that region to fill that seat. So that could be a hard one to fill. So potentially proving the seat type might allow either a city or a special district or a public member to be able to fill that role.
Well, why?
You had it on.
You had it on, Debbie.
There you go.
Okay. So why not allow for exceptions? You know, where in such and such case, then you have the option to do A or B or C.
And I agree with you. I think
That's the
what
authorization.
I'm going to
thing
step
that
back
you-
from this particular issue. What I'm getting a sense of is that by kind of taking the half measure now that Cal LAFCo is proposing, by not including changes to the regional map, that there are more issues that need to be explored that I do not think we have a clear outcome at a meeting in February, especially because we don't have the information of what actual changes will be right in front of us now. The information that we got that they're not going to include the map was last Friday. So I think there's lots of things in flux. And I think there are questions about maybe there should be alternatives if this is the case, or maybe this is a vote that happens later at like the annual conference or some other meeting, because I think there are a lot of questions still.
So maybe keep our direction in your pocket. But
Yeah, for the voting member of this, I think there's a lot of great discussion and a lot of great questions, and I think there's still a lot to really kind of figure out.
Yeah.
at least again, based on this kind of the conversation that I've heard right here on this item.
So for this item, do we have to take a motion to provide guidance for Executive Officer Bartoli?
So I will not be the voting member. I will provide feedback to the voting member for the meeting, which would be item 7B. I've taken some notes and I think I generally understand the concerns and comments and the potential direction for the voting member. And I think we'll have a conversation separately with the voting member who that will be.
Only took an hour.
Yeah. We're prepared to give you specific.
Well, right now I'm the voting member, but we can elect a new voting member, even though I'm on the Cal LAFCo board and I'll be at the board meeting.
Go for it.
Well,
Absolutely.
Yep.
You're very intimately involved in it and have a lot.
I
of
just
knowledge
want y'all to know
we don't
that
have.
the viewpoints that you've given, I share with
Okay.
y'all. So,
Okay.
and just so y'all know that a lot of the proposed changes, yes, the board voted on that, but a lot of this was driven by this working group too.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe we should do the voting member item.
Yes, if you, I'm ready to move on to item 7B if the commission is ready.
Yes, item 7.
So item 7B does have an action with it. And the Cal LAFCo Board of Directors has called a special meeting on February 23rd to discuss now these bylaws changes. Part of the special board meeting, each LAFCo has been asked to nominate a voting member to participate at that meeting. It's similar to what the LAFCo Commission does for the annual conference and voting members at that particular board election. Most cases, the chair of LAFCo is the voting delegate when we have the conferences. And it also is typical that we then appoint an alternate just in case that voting member is not able to attend. So LAFCo staff suggests that we kind of follow a similar process with this particular special board meeting, and that there's a designation of a voting member and an alternate for both this particular meeting and any other special board meetings that might be called in the calendar year of 2026. So with that,
I also include that for the annual meeting, Rob.
for the
I mean,
annual
obviously,
meeting,
we'll just
for
get it
the
done.
annual meeting, I would like to wait till October or wait till closer till we get to it, just in case there's a conflict that someone cannot make.
Oh, got it. Okay.
That meeting, because that is a standing one. So that's dependent usually on who can attend the conference that year.
Okay.
So then you need to entertain a motion for the voting member, which I'm more than happy to make. So you'll entertain the motion. I'm more than happy to make the motion to select as our delegate Chair Virginia Chang Corrali, if everyone else is okay. We have a second.
Is everyone okay with that?
And we would then also be asking after that action for an alternate if the commission wants to do that.
And I will nominate our vice chair
I'll second that.
to do that. So that'll be the little slate now that we'd be voting on.
Sounds good.
Any other discussion? I think we've got the viewpoints here, and I think we share the same concerns. So that's a good thing. Okay, roll call, please. Diane,
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Rinaldi, seconded by Vice Chair Draper. Commissioner Martin,
Aye.
Commissioner Rudolph,
Aye.
Commissioner Rinaldi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Draper,
Yes.
Chair Chang Corali.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion passes.
Thank you. So the other items are information only. Rob, do you want to, I mean, it's already 5 o'clock.
I'll be very brief in my two items here. Item 8 is just informational only for the budget. Currently, there are no concerns regarding fiscal year 25-26. We're all in the parameters for revenue and expenditures. Any questions on that particular item?
And
And
then
item 9 is just a legislative policy committee update. Currently, there's no legislation being tracked by Cal LAFCo, and there is a report from the California Senate Committee on Local Government attached to that.
And let me just add that I'm currently on the legislative committee for Cal LAFCO, so I will tell y'all what update y'all is needed, because I do think that's important to keep track of legislation and where Cal LAFCO is coming from. So I'm glad that the legislative committee for this commission's intact.
I do have a question that can't be answered today. I just don't really understand what SB 322 is for urban inclusionary zones are. So if that comes back up, I'd like a little more information.
Okay.
And staff does not have any items or any
Okay.
correspondence for item 10.
Then I'll make a motion to adjourn at 4:54.
And that,
Or one time during this meeting.
So can we just adjourn?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
bullet points, Gaddis.
Thanks for your suggestion. I like
Yeah,
the
this wasn't very
authority
easy.
thing.